Hey everyone, welcome to my first ever YouTube video. I'm so excited to be here and let's just have some fun. So today we want to talk about some drag and drop stuff inside React and how we can handle file uploads using drag and drops without any kind of library or any kind of frameworks. It's just straight up JavaScript and we're going to put it inside our React app, but it doesn't really have to be a React app. So here's a sample that I made. So this is the complete version. So I have a hello.txt file. I can drag it on here. It says dragging. I can leave it and it doesn't say dragging anymore. And I can drop it here and it's gonna give me the file name and the file size in bytes. We are gonna talk about reading the content and manipulating the content, but not in this video. I'm going to make another video for that one because that one takes a little bit longer than this, but this is the idea. So I drag and drop my files and it tells me the file name and the file size. So this is the complete version. I'm going to close this one up and here's what we're going to work with. So there's just an HTML template inside my React components. There's a title, there's a drag area, which is this big box right here, and there's this file list, which is this one, and then each of these ones are a file item. I am going to delete one of these for simplicity, and we're going to divide these into their own components. So let's make a drag area component. It imports React from React, and it exports defaults a function called drag area, gets some props, and returns some values. And the value is going to be this box right here. There we go. And also, I am going to make one for our file list. So file list.js imports React from React, export defaults, a function called file list, gets some props, returns some values, and that value is going to be this whole thing. We are gonna have to separate each file item into their own component, but for now we'll just leave it at this, and then I'm just gonna import these two inside my app.js. So import drag area from drag area, and also import file list from file list, and I'm just going to reference them here. So drag area and file list, and there we go. We're back to our first view. So right now we're gonna go to drag area and deal with some drag and drop stuff. This is where the magic happens. This is where we have all the events for drag and drops, and this is where we handle everything. So first thing we want to do is that add that dragging text and have it rely on a state. So I'm gonna create a state right here using use state. And the state is gonna be is dragged over, and obviously set is dragged over since that's the convention. So I'm gonna use state, and the default state is gonna be just false, and then later on we're gonna turn it to true. So the whole thing is gonna be a boolean. And right here I'm gonna say if is dragged over is true, show this text. So once we change this state to true, this text is gonna appear right beside this text inside our drag component. So how do we make this work? So we have two events for this purpose. One is on drag enter and on drag leave. So these two deal with just recognizing that a file is being dragged onto our component. So let's make some handlers for these two. So I'm going to call this drag enter handler, and it's going to be a function that gets the event object. I'm going to do event.prevent default, and I'm also going to set this state set is dragged over to true. So this is gonna make this state to true when something is being dragged over, although I haven't wired up the event yet. And we're gonna do the reverse for on drag leave. So let's call this drag leave event handler. Oh, just handler equals a function, gets an e. We do e.prevent default, and then set is dragged over back to false. So once we leave this box, it's gonna set it back to false. So let's wire this up right now. So the event was on drag enter, and we're gonna assign drag enter handler, and also on drag leave, and we are going to assign drag leave handler. So let's just test this out right now. There we go. Let's expand this a little bit. So once I enter that area, it's gonna say dragging, and once I leave, it's gonna remove that text from the box. So this is working well so far, and we have our events for on drag enter and on drag leave. The next event we're gonna work with is drag drop. It's actually on drop, so it's called on drop, and let's make a handler for that. So const drag drop handler equals a function. It gets the e again. We do e.prevent default, and then let's just see if we have any files dragged in. So the files are going to be inside e.data transfer.files. So this is going to be an array of files that are being dragged. Let's just get the first one and see if there's any inside there. I'm going to console log it for now and see what we get. I'm going to open the console, refresh the page. There we go. Console's clear. Let's just open this more. There we go. So if I leave this here, it's going to open up in the browser, obviously, and it's not going to do this. To deal with that, we're going to have another one. Oh, I also haven't even wired it up. So on drop is going to be drag drop handler. And to stop the file from being opened in the browser like this, there's another event we're going to use. This is the last one, but this is very important because otherwise, once you drag the file onto the browser, it's just going to open it in a new tab and the app isn't going to work. So the last one is on drag over. So let's make the handler for that. Drag over handler. e.prevent default. And that's all it does. It just prevents the browser from doing the default behavior, which is opening the file in a new tab. And let's wire this up too. So on drag over, and we're gonna set it to our event handler. So right now we should be able to see the console log the file object inside here. So again, let's do this, open this up a little more, and let's drop this here, and we see, ta-da, there's a file name, there's a lot of properties that we can use. There's a size, there's a buffer that can be used to read the data. There's a lot of things that we can use to do different things with. But for now, we're just going to work with the name and the size, which are the simplest properties ever. So inside our drag drop handler, first of all, we need to check if there is any file. So back to this, I'm going to save this inside a file variable. So this is going to be the first file that gets dropped. We can obviously do something that deals with more than one file, but we're going to leave it at one file for now. And I am going to check if there is any file existing in that, because otherwise we're going to face a lot of errors that we don't want to deal with right now. So we can do the name, or I can use the shorthand syntax. So name and size equals file. So we have the name and size of the file that is dragged, and right now we can do something with it. I can go back and console log it, but we've seen it before, so let's just not do that for now. So the next step for us would be to save our files inside a state that we can later on use to render some components here. So for that, we're gonna have to deal with our file list component, and our app component. So I'm gonna make the states inside our app component, because then we can use it inside our drag area, and also we can use it in our file list. Since we're not using any kind of Redux or anything, it is harder for us if we define this state inside one of our components and then we want to use that in the other ones. So we're just going to define it inside our app component, which is the higher one, and then we can use prop drilling to use it inside drag area and file list. So let's make a state. Again, I'm going to import use state, and I'm going to call my state file list and set file list use state. And this time my default state is an empty array that I can later on add stuff to. So this is my default state, and then I'm gonna add my files inside this. So if we go back to our drag area, we can pass in set file list. Actually, let's do this. Let's create a function, add file, gets a file, and does this. So it does set file list, the file list we have so far, and it's going to add the file to the end of that array. So first time it's going to be an empty array, so this is going to be empty, and this is going to be the first one that gets inside, and then later on we're going to add whatever file we get in to the state that we have so far. So I'm going to do this and then pass this as a prop, and I can go to drag area, and instead of getting out the names and size, I can just do props.add file and pass in the file to it. And it was that simple. We just add every file to that state, and then to render that file inside my file list, we can go ahead and pass file list to that component as a prop, go inside file list, and we can render it right here. So I am gonna separate this at this point. I'm gonna make another component. Let's call this file item equals, it's just a component, right? So it gets prop and returns this thing, and then I can print out props.name and also props.size. So I just have to render this component for each of my file list items that I have here. So that's easy. We can come here. We're gonna say props.filelist.map has an item, and for each item it's gonna render file item, and it's gonna pass in props, actually item.name as the name, and for the size it's gonna pass in item.size. So let's see what happens right now. So right now we don't have any kind of file. I can start adding some file here. So expand this, expand this. So once I drag and drop my file, I can see that it's being rendered. So what happens is that my state, which is inside my app component, gets updated, and this file object gets added to the file. And inside my file list, I am just rendering whatever's inside my file list state, and I'm just rendering their name and size. So I can obviously change this to something else, and I can go ahead and change the content too. And once I drag and drop, I can see the size changes and also the name changes. So we have the new file with the new size. So in the next video, we're going to talk about how we can read the data from inside the file and how we can actually save it and download it again as another file. But for now, this is what we did. I am going to put this whole thing inside the show notes, so you can just go click the link and fork this repo from Code Sandbox, and maybe you can download it and use it to your advantage. Thank you for watching the first video. I am going to be back soon, but for now, peace.